Welcome everybody, this is Adamant MTG, and I'm going to be doing a series of deck building templates for new players. Welcome to Magic Arena if you are new, and I'll be doing these with every color in Magic. We'll start off with a creature-based Stompy template, and I'll talk to you a little bit about my formula. And the idea here is to give you a building or a design tool to get in and start building your own decks and with the cards that are in your collection. So first off, you can find the link to export this template into your collection, and that link will be below. I'll give you a quick kind of walk through how to do that. So what you're going to be doing is when you click on the link, you'll be exporting to MTGA. You'll take that export and you'll click the import button. That import button will bring the deck into your collection. Keep in mind that there may be a warning that says you do not have the cards, and that's fine. You just ignore that warning. You'll get the deck in, and it'll have an exclamation or some sort of a mark saying that you don't have all the cards. So then when you open the deck itself, each card that you do not have will be flagged, and we can talk to you about what to do then. So the idea here of a template is to create a structure, and that structure you can just basically mimic with any cards you have available. I've made the list with a lot of commons, a couple of rares here and there, just to showcase the power of those cards when I play it. And if you don't have these rares, or you don't have any particular cards, maybe even uncommons and commons aren't available to you, the idea will be to keep the same casting costs if possible and replace them with something you do have. So in order to make that simple, let's say, for example, you didn't have a Gilded Goose. You could just go in here, click your filters by green, because we're obviously a mono green deck. Click your 1 casting cost, and then by doing that, it will give you your available cards that you could use and replace them with whatever you like. You can it could be the artwork, it could be another creature. Really, it's up to you. You can read the cards and kind of decide what you want to use. We're not really trying to go for incredible synergy here. We're just doing a deck building tutorial, but in more advanced deck building techniques, you're going to want to do things like, if you have a tribal synergy with elves, then maybe putting in as many elves. And you can also use the filter here to further filter your choices by typing elf, and now you know these are your elf choices. So that's kind of the stuff that you want to, you can use as a deck building tool. So you can learn the tool as you go, but it's helpful. Let's see if anything has flying. See, well, sure, the goose does because it has wings. Anyways, that's the idea. Use the template to create your own deck. And if for some reason the mana cost isn't exactly what you want it to be, let's say you just dislike a card because of the artwork. Let's say this one. Oops, I did not want to do that. Let's put it back. I had a cat. I think he costs 5, so let's go back and find him. There he is. Okay, Keeper of Fables. Let's say you don't like this card because you're a dog person and you don't like vegetable cats. So if you don't like vegetable cats, you can take this out and you can replace it with anything. It doesn't have to be a 5-drop. It can be anything that you want that you have in your collection. Maybe you like dogs, so let's... Oh, there's no green dogs, apparently. At least none of them at 5 casting costs. So let's... There's no green dogs at all. How about... What else would there be? Unfortunately, it's sad there's no green dogs. So with that being said, let's... that looks like a green dog to me. A hound. Ah, I used the wrong terminology. Let's see if we have hounds. There's the hound. Okay. He's pretty thick. He looks like a strong dog. All right, anyways, so now you have your deck template. Now we'll look at the analysis of the mana curve and how the deck is actually put together. So when we look at these, you click that little icon, you get the breakdown of the deck details. We know we're mono green. We have 24 land in the deck, 21 of them being forests, a couple of optional lands in there. We also have a handful of spells, instants, and sorceries. We can talk more about how those work later, and we'll do like a combat tutorial or a gameplay tutorial. And the bulk of the deck is 27 creatures. That's how it does its damage and how you win the game. Creature-based decks are typically good for starter players because a creature-based deck is the most sort of efficient and effective way to do damage to your opponent. It's what Wizards likes us to do. Put creatures down, attack and block, and exchange the battle. And in that battle, you're trying to reduce your opponent's life to 0 from 20. Usually, that's the starting life. And we also are playing Standard, which is the types of cards you can use. Standard meaning the current available sets for the Standard format. And we can talk more about that another time. But basically, if you sort by Standard, these are the cards available to you. So, with that, let's also, I guess there's another thing worth saying. If you feel like spending wildcards, which you can click over this little flower here, it tells you what wildcards are available to you. This is where you would craft or create cards. Now, when you're looking at your collection, you typically have the collected button highlighted, and that will tell you what you have to build. But if you want to click the not collected button, you can do that, and it shows you all the cards that you do not have or own. And that's a good way to create, you obviously have the entire library of cards at your fingertips. So anything you don't own, you will see here, and that's where you can click on them, and it'll offer you to spend a wild card. It'll give you a warning that you're about to spend one. You click yes, and that card is added to your deck, and therefore your collection. All right. Hopefully that is helpful. Let's play a quick game just to show you how the deck flows, and we'll play against Sparky. We're not going to do too much of a play tutorial because it can get really deep, but I will just go through the basics of a match. So you hit play. It starts off with a screen that gives you an option to mulligan. There's our opponent's face. If you look really closely, there's eyes and a little smile. How adorable. So Sparky, we're playing Sparky because we don't want to play a real human opponent because they might get impatient while we're doing this tutorial. Now, the first choice you can make is the choice to mulligan. And the mulligan choice is sometimes really important for competitive play, of course. You want to make sure you have a playable hand. If you don't, you can throw your cards back, shuffle your deck, draw 7 new cards, but you have to take one and put it on the bottom, or rather, bottom of your library, that one card. So in this case, I have 2 land. Usually you mulligan if you have 1 or 2 land, but typically 1 or 0 land. And if you don't have any playable cards, that's another reason to mulligan. I do have playable creatures, so we are going to keep this hand of 7. And righto, let's play. Let's go do this, Sparky. An island. So the classic forest versus island matchup. We will drop a creature. Now I could drop the Gilded Goose as ramp. The reason I say ramp is because it provides mana. And that's usually a good thing if I had a 3 casting cost card that I needed to cast. But I don't. I only have this when I don't need to cast that early in the game. So the play right now is to drop a 1/1 creature. And that is an Elf Warrior. So turn 2, we have our main phase. We can drop a land on either main phase, this one or after we attack. A lot of players will. Another non-human creature, you get a +1. So the interesting thing about this attack is we can attack now for 1, or we could read the card and decide how we want to do more damage. By reading the card, it tells us if we had another creature in play that's not a human, we get extra damage. So that seems like a good thing to do. So we haven't dropped a land yet. We don't have to. So we will drop this additional Elf Warrior just to have him in play to trigger the ability, and then we'll attack. And they will anticipate which is something they can do instantaneously because it's an instant. They take their 2 damage because we got the plus, and now we're in our second main phase. A lot of times people will say always attack first and then cast a creature or do something after you attack because it gives your opponent less information. But in this case, because of the ability of the Wildwood Tracker, attacking first was the best choice. Now we have another land to play. We have 1 mana available, and I think we might as well cast the Goose. It'll create a food, and then we pass the turn. Now you notice the game automatically passed the turn. It didn't allow us to give our opponent, in real Magic you typically would say, okay, it's your turn now, but Magic Arena knows what's in your hand, and it'll sort of force you through your turn accordingly. If you don't want that to happen, you can always click on a stop, and it will create a stop at the end of your turn or in your second main phase, wherever you want it to stop, and pause the game rather than racing through it like it just did. All right, so now we are on another turn. They have a potential blocker. I think that's fine. We'll drop our land down now. There's no particular reason not to. We're going to attack with our tracker, not with our Goose because it's a 0 power, so it's not going to do any damage. And we'll let them block if they choose to. We don't really have a choice. And they choose to block in this particular case, which is fine. And now we have another opportunity to cast spells. We will cast a Troll. It goes over here, which is an area called the Stack. You learn more about that as you go. Very important, though. Again, it's all about priority, back and forth. I do something, they can respond. So this is their spell they are attempting to cast. I can choose to respond or not. I will not respond. I'll let that happen. It resolves. So the button down here, you're going to have to click a lot because it's always about priority switching back and forth to each player. So now when it's the end step, it's giving me an option to do things. I will not do anything, so I pass the turn. And now I have 1 land per turn. I will drop my land into play. So cards like this are fun and interesting, but there's no reason to cast a card like this now, because what it does, it gives me a +2/+2 until the end of turn. So a lot of times it's exciting to cast a spell, and I have the mana to do it. I could drop this out. I use the Goose as a mana ramp. I have 5 mana. I do this. My creatures get +2/+2, but it doesn't kill the opponent. It just hits them pretty hard. So the way I look at it is those sorts of sort of irrelevant spells won't accomplish anything except get them a little bit lower in life, and then you're passing your turn anyways. So for the most part, most Magic players would say hold off until cards like this are optimized. It's the best time you could cast a spell like that. And they have flyers, and we're going to pass the turn. Now I can use this opportunity at the end of their turn to make a food token. So the ability of the Goose to create food tokens. So you want to read all your cards, see what they can do, and do those things in opportune times. This is pretty interesting. So we don't have the mana to cast it yet, but I'm contemplating whether or not that card is going to help us a lot. Now, if we attack with this, we can die, which we don't necessarily want to do. Apparently, Sparky is trolling me now, wanting me to play quicker. So we'll attack with the 3/3. It would be a bad block for him to block that, so we'll take Sparky to 10 and pass our turn. We will take the 2 damage without doing any blocks. because if we block, we die. We don't want that. We'll make a food, since we can. And we'll also eat a food to gain life back to 21 now. All right, there is our 5th land. We have another one here with the goose, so we can actually cast this if we choose to. I think I'm going to. And I think what I'm going to do is put some counters on all my things. You. Now if I put one counter there, it protects me from that, but I have a flyer. I think flyers are pretty useful. Another counter here gives me the ability to make this hexproof more than once, so I think that's fun. Let's do that. It's going to ask me to pay. I will auto pay. I'll sacrifice the food to get that extra mana. And that should be the win because of this guy. He gets the +1 counter. Oh, and they're going to anticipate. Do they have a way to stop this attack? They do not, so that is a win. All right, so if some of the things were a little bit hard to catch on to, Magic is a pretty complicated game in a lot of ways, so this tutorial was not designed to really be a step-by-step through the combat phases, because you have to kind of move things on. But hopefully that gave you an indication of some of the decisions and how the deck flows in general, and it looked like it flowed out pretty well. And that's the first of, we'll do a tutorial for every color, so if green decks don't excite you or interest you, we'll do one for every other color of Magic, using the same sort of principles in deck building, but you'll see more of a... And again, we can play that deck 100 times, and you'll get a different flow of creatures and spells. Magic is exciting because it's always different, and it's always a puzzle what deck your opponent, ours being Sparky, will bring against us, and how those decks will interact with ours is always an interesting experience. So have fun with Magic. It's a wonderful game. Find the color that speaks to you. As far as color identity, it's really important to have a connection. Every color has sort of a different personality to it. So your job as a new player is to figure out, play all the decks, play all the colors, figure out what you like, and then we'll get even more advanced with multicolor decks. But for the beginning, I think a single color deck will give you more of a grasp of the color identity of that particular color, and you can make your connections there. So hope you enjoyed this first video in the series, and if you want to make any comments below about how I can improve and what you'd like to see, that would be really cool. And welcome to Magic. Happy Planeswalkering.